Hello, friends. Welcome back to Confessions of a Hmong Shaman. Today's story is going to be 4 short stories on how people found out that they have shaman guides. If you haven't helped us and subscribe to the channel, please do so. We'll appreciate it very much. Now, let's get started. One of the questions I get asked the most is, do I have shaman guides? Or most of the people that I've met with shaman guides have these qualities, but just because you don't have these qualities does not mean that you do not have shaman guides. Rather, just take this as a learning curve or something else to base your facts off from. A majority of the people that I have met that have had shaman guides have really big hearts, and they put others before themselves. They're some of the nicest people and some of the most faithful people that you'll ever meet. Most of them are super skeptical, but then once you get them to believe, they commit 100%. A majority of them experience a lot of vivid dreamings, foretelling future events, and some of them even experience a lot of sleep paralysis, or they run into a lot of entities or attachments. Usually, they're the first ones to seek help. Not all sleep paralysis is associated with shaman guides, but some of them are. Usually, after they get cleared from those attachments, then I would usually talk to their spirit guides. And when this happens, I usually ask for a confirmation. They will usually tell me an event that has happened in that person's or individual's life that only they can confirm. A few of these confirmations went like this. For one of the cases, I had confirmed that this person was blessed with shaman guides. He was super skeptical and didn't believe me when I told him that he had shaman guides. So I told them that if they were real and if they were pure and holy, for them to go dream to him. The following night, he had a dream and woke up in the middle of the night. After he woke up, he texted me to check his dream for him. I told him not to tell me any of the details in the dream and let me see if I can talk to his guides and for them to tell me what his dream was. I started chanting and finally connected with him. During my conversation, his guides mentioned that in the dream, they were in a very dark setting and they were chasing their dad, which our guides call us dad or mom, depending on what gender you are. I then asked him if he was being chased in his dream, because that's what his guides told me. He then confirmed that he was in fact being chased, and then he elaborated on the dream. He then asked me to ask them why they kept chasing him, and they responded and said that we keep chasing him because he keeps running, which I found out that was pretty funny at the time. And then I relayed the message over to him, and he tells me that to tell his guides that for them to stop chasing him because it's creepy, and if they keep chasing him, then he's gonna keep running. I then relayed that message over to them, and he finally acknowledged that maybe his spirit guides or shaman guides might be real. Just FYI, not all instances are as clear as this one. It varies from person to person and depends on your guides. Another instance was a guide came to me and asked for help. I looked into him and my guides showed me a man standing on the edge of the lake fishing by himself and crying to himself. His sorrow became overwhelming and I felt the sudden rush of sadness throughout my whole body. I then saw the girl, or a girl, standing over him trying to comfort him. This girl was not alive. I then asked the girl why she is following him. She then responds and says that he's lonely and his heart aches so much, so she's just there to comfort him. I then tell her that he's married already and he has a wife and a kids, so for her to leave him alone. We ended up negotiating with that spirit, and after the negotiation, his shaman guides came out. They wanted him to acknowledge them and for me to pass the message over to him. So I asked them for a confirmation just to make sure that they're really the pure and holy ones. Then they brought up a borderline death or life situation. In this instance, they showed me a kid riding a bike and almost getting hit by a car. So then I turned to him and asked if he ever had a life or death situation when he was younger. Maybe something like getting hit by a car while riding a bike. He then says that he has no recollection of that event happening. And so I turn over to his guides again and ask them that they need a more specific detail. So they then show me a image of someone getting shot at. Then all of a sudden I felt a pain on my left rib cage as if I was hit by bullets. I then turn around and ask him again. So no other life or death situation or near death experience? He then says no. And then I ask him again. I said, do you recall getting shot at or have you ever been shot at? Then he said yes, he was shot at in his earlier stages in life, but then he never got hit. This was just a confirmation from his guides that they were present at that time when he was getting shot at, and they could possibly be one of the reasons why he survived or he didn't get shot at. This next story was about a girl. She had went to the cabin on a cabin trip with her friend and ended up having something follow her home. I ended up shading with this attachment, and after the attachment left, then her shaman guides came through. So as soon as I entered her house, I saw an altar sitting in the living room. So I asked her if anybody in her family was a shaman, and she said no, but she was supposed to become a shaman, and it was confirmed by some other people that she had guides. I ended up sweeping her house, and then her peer shaman guides came out. So when they came out, I asked them, I said, hey, look, if you're the good and pure guides, tell me something that only your parent would know, which is the girl, which would be their mom, right? Then they showed me an image of a little girl getting lost in a forest or a place surrounded by trees and eventually found her way back. So I turned around and asked her, and I said, hey, did you ever get lost when you were little? I see the setting as like a place that had a lot of trees, so it might have been a forest or something. She thought about it for a second, and then she elaborated on the situation and told me that when she was younger, she got lost at a soccer tournament, but eventually found her way back to her parents. So that was just another pretty cool way of confirming that she had shaman guides. This last story, I ended up checking for a friend because they wanted to know to see if they had any shaman guides. This friend of mine went to church all his life and dedicated a good portion of his life assisting the church and even tried to go to school to become a pastor. But then this is how his story went. He told me that one day, one of his uncles just randomly came up to him and said, hey, so basically saying, hey, I know that you have shaman guides, but how come you didn't tell me? So this friend of mine just looked at his uncle in like disbelief or shocked. And then he ended up asking the uncle, like, "Hey, how did you know that I had guides?" And then his uncle told him, "Oh yeah, my guides told me that you have guides." So about 2 months later, then this friend of mine started hearing cling play and play, but then there was no funerals at the time. But then he did find out that a few weeks later, uh, one of their close family members passed away. Then afterwards, he started having very vivid dreaming of traveling to odd, weird places. This friend of mine ended up finding out that I put up my altar as a shaman, and then he reached out for confirmation. So when I went to check for him, I made my way up to Luchoning. When you get there, you get approached by a gatekeeper. We usually pay the toll, and then after we pay the toll, we make our way up the mountain. So when you make your way up the mountain, you just address yourself, who you are, and why you're there. So I was there to check to see if this friend of mine had shaman guides. So when I got up there, I would say his last name and then his first name. And then after that, they would tell me he either have it or he doesn't. If they have it, sometimes they'll, for this instance, when I went up there, they showed me a big book, and they, as they were turning the pages, they pointed to his name, which lit up on the paper. Confirmation that he had shaman guides. I then made my way down the mountain and thanked the god there. Then told my friend of what had happened. For some people, we as a shaman will see crystal clear depending on their intentions toward you. Then there are others who, no matter how hard we try, like nothing is accurate, we can't get any confirmation. Usually if it's like that, after 2 or 3 attempts, if I can't confirm at least one thing, then I would stop the session. In that instance, it's most likely that there are things that that person doesn't want to reveal or to acknowledge, or there's something that they're just hiding. Once in a while, you'll have cases where their guides are being overprotective and will lie to us as the shaman. But majority of the time, it's usually the humans that are deceitful. Just imagine going to a doctor and telling them you're in pain, and they ask you where it hurts, and you just basically tell them to figure it out. Shamanism is basically the same way. We don't read your mind and only go based off what the spirits tell us. The few instances of people who I have looked into that had confirmed that they have shaman guides. The next question that, or the next few questions that arises is, am I ready to rise yet? Well, before you answer that question, you should think about these next questions. Do you like doing community service? Do you before yourself? Does your spouse support you? Being a shaman isn't a get rich quick scheme. It really is just helping others for little or no pay. Yeah, there's people out there charging thousands and others who are willing to pay them. In reality, most of the work that we do is free. We lose out on time that we'll never get back from our family. We miss work and take days off so that we can help people heal spiritually. Most of us, younger generations, would make more than what we would get if we took a few days off to help someone heal. You take on people's burdens, and when everyone wants help, they go above and beyond to get to you. But once they're healed, they tend to forget about you. No one cares about how you feel or how much pain you are in, rather what you can do in order to heal others. People hear of all the cool stories that we tell, but have no idea the struggles and pains we go through. Yes, it's cool to be a medium. Yes, it's cool to talk to spirits. Yes, it's awesome to know about things that no one else knows about. Just because you have shaman guides, it does not change who you are as an individual. Some people think that once we rise, all of our issues go away. You're definitely wrong if you have this thought process. Things only get worse and the test becomes even more grueling. As a shaman, we're constantly being tested with whatever our deepest, darkest desires are. For some, it's powers, and for others, it's love. As a shaman, we're constantly tested to see if we're worthy of holding power. Some shamans seek power to try to become more powerful than any other shaman. In my opinion, power is no good if you cannot help anyone other than yourself. What good would having all the power in the world be if you can't help your loved ones? The next big test for shamans out there is love. Our guides would take us down a stroll of memory lane to see who you were in your previous life. Don't let position, power, and previous lovers interfere with your goal of helping others. At the end of the day, no one cares about who you were in your past life and how strong your guides are, but rather what type of impacts have you made on their lives. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to our short stories today. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe to our channel so that we can help others find our channel. If anyone has any stories that they would like to submit, please feel free to send us an email. Our email is in the link below. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you guys in the next one.